Hello everyone, welcome back to our channel and welcome back to a new video. This is going to be a very interesting kind of a video, and if this is your first time watching me on this channel, I'm Prakash and I'm a software developer, and I'll be posting content on this channel, all things related to software development. So if this is something that you are excited about or interested in, make sure you are subscribed to our channel so you can follow along with all our content, right? So now coming back to the context of this video, right? So this video is all about understanding what exactly is CI/CD is, and how do you set up CI/CD setup on your projects, and what exactly is CI/CD and how is this achieved, right? So this is the context of the video. So let's get started. So before getting into what exactly we're going to do, I wanted to show this graph. So this is an interesting depiction I pulled up from this blog. I'll link to this blog in the comment section. You can check out the entire blog. If you are a visual, not a visual learner, you learn through blogs and stuff, right? So basically, when somebody says that they are using CI/CD, CI/CD basically stands for continuous integration, continuous deployment and development, right? So previously what used to happen that people used to work on a project for like years together, and when the time comes for the deployment, there's going to be a big event in the company, and people are the development process happens for like month and all, getting all the approvals, sign offs and etc, right? So that's the old way of doing handling your projects or handling your production, right? So, and that's obviously not a good way to do it, right? So the better way to do is constantly committing your code, constantly making your production update up to date, right? So this is where the concept of CI/CD kicks in. And basically in this video we'll try our new project. So that is, I named it as a project matrix. So we are assuming that these are a startup and we are going to set up CI/CD for this project, right? So basically this is what we are going to do, right? So we'll be creating a Git repository, and with the help of Git Actions, right? So Git Actions is basically a CI/CD tool that GitHub provides us, right? So there are so many Git CI/CD tools in the market. If I have to name some, that is GoCD by ThoughtWorks. There is Jules, Jenkins. Different companies have different flavors of CI/CD, right? So we'll be using GitHub Actions to enable CI/CD in our project, right? So this is how it's going to do, right? So in our project we'll be having branches like master, develop and feature, right? So every time somebody wants to develop a new feature, they create a feature branch out of our develop branch, and they contribute their feature. They make a pull request into our develop branch, right? And once feature comes into develop, our pipeline kicks in, and we push it into a development zone, and this will be our dev environment, right? So, and once we tested everything, right, so we'll again pull it into our dev and make a pull request into master, right? So this happens when we know that we have tested everything, we done the QA and all in our dev environment, then we are promoting it to a master, right? So basically we make another pull request and we merge it into a master, and this will invoke the production pipeline, right? So, and that's how we send code into production, right? So in this way multiple people can take feature branches, develop them and merge it into develop, and basically we give free hand for developers to merge anything into develop, because that's going to be a dev environment. Ideally we should have something like a UAT and QA as well, but for our demonstration we'll stick to these two environments, right? So that is what we're going to build, and in order to facilitate that I'll be using Heroku. Heroku is basically a platform as a service where I can host my projects like Node.js, Python, all sort of stuff, right? So people use AWS, Azure, all kinds of cloud platforms, PaaS services. For our demonstration case, to keep everything simple and cost free, I'll be using Heroku. In order to get a Heroku account, basically use your email ID, sign up for the Heroku. That's a basic process I won't be showing here. And once you, get everything started, you will be in your dashboard, right? So this is where we want us on a same page, right? So do that, and I've created the project as I said. So this is going to be a Git project, and I'll show you how to set a CI/CD with no dev and prod environments running simultaneously, and push happens each time, right? So let's get started. So basically, what I will be developing is a simple node project, a React.js project. Let's create that, right? So first thing, I'll basically clone my repo. This is an empty repo. I'll clone this, and this is an empty repo. Now what I would do is I'll insert my React project directly into this repo. So this is how I do it. I'll take a clone of the project and create a React app with the same name, so that all the node related stuff are written directly into our Git repo, right? So this should create us a React app, and it might take a couple of seconds. So in the meanwhile, let's create our apps, right? So when I say app, in Heroku we'll be creating our dev and prod environments, right? So it's pretty easy to do. Just click on new, create your app, and the project that we're trying to develop is called Project Matrix, and this app would be our prod environment. I'm doing it in Europe, which is closer to where I live, and that's it for now. We don't need much to do here, and I also do the same thing uh, for the dev environment. Project Matrix slash dev Europe, create app, right? So we have our apps ready, right? So let's see if the installation is done. Right, so installation is done. Let's move into our project, and if I do ls, so this is a basic React project, right? So I did some this thing, but basically you have two branches, right? So one is master and one is develop, and let me do a git full. Got it. So we are in master, and if I basically run this, right, so we can see our basic project up. Waiting for the server. Yeah, so this is your React app, right? So this is a basic React app. This is all comes through default, and if you want to check how it is, I'll open this into an editor. WebStorm is an editor by JetBrains, and this is what we're going to do. Let's come back to our Git project and set up some settings that are required for us, right? So basically, I'll be requiring some secrets, right, that I need to use so that I can make a deployment to Heroku, right? So Heroku, there is an API key that you need to use, and I've already shared mine with you. I've shown already this, right? So this is my key, but I'll be deleting after the video, so you can create your own keys. So this will be a Heroku API key. This will be used to by Git or GitHub Actions to write to the Heroku app, right? So we'll be also needing some other keys, like what exactly is my email ID, and right. So now that we got all the secrets ready, let me show you what exactly these are needed for, right? So in order for our project to recognize that we have actions ready, right? So we need to configure GitHub Actions on that, right? So for that, we basically you can do it from here, but I do manually. Go to our main folder, create a new directory, and call it as dot github. This will be used by GitHub to look for the actions, right? So, and also create a new directory called .workflows, and all the YAML files that are created here will be taken as a GitHub action file, right? So we'll be creating two new files. One is for dev. I'll call it as dev.yaml, and let's add it to our git source. And we'll also be needing another file called prod.yaml, right? So it doesn't matter what you name it, right? So GitHub will automatically take these, right? And as soon as you add these things, the IDE will suggest you to add jobs and all. And if you're not familiar with YAML and GitHub Actions, I'll suggest you to read up on it. But let me give a brief overview of how these YAML files are set up. Um, Let me open my Sublime text, and if you see, right, so I've already created a small script here. This is basically a YAML file, and I'll walk you through what exactly each of these sentences mean, right? So you have a basic key and value pairs here, and if you can relate what YAML is, it is similar to JSON file, and it is used to, to give properties or configurations, right? So the name of this workflow would be production workflow, rightly so, because we are trying to use this for the production prod.yaml. And there are two important things to take care of. There is on and there is jobs, right? So basically on denotes uh, when the action has to happen on which branch, right? So on what I did was on every push, right? So whenever I push on master branch, I want these jobs to execute, right? So that's the meaning of on and jobs, right? So and in the jobs, I'm running again two different jobs. One is to basically run tests, right? So if you're aware of what exactly test is, right? So we do TDD, not we, right? Most of the startups and all the big companies, they do tests, right? So tests are the integral part of our development. So we write tests and then we write code, right? So and each build we make sure our tests are running. So we basically do npm test to see if tests are running, and we once the tests are running, we basically deploy it to prod. So I can rename it to deploy prod. The job as deploy prod, and it needs the test to be passing. Once the tests pass, there is this tag called run on. So this basically specifies what environment that we are running in. And if you want to know how exactly this YAML is created, you can basically search for Heroku deploy node.js. Heroku, they have a official documentation on this YAML file. And few key things to remember is I'm passing a Heroku API key, and if you remember, I've already saved that in my API secrets, right? So in GitHub, and the app name, this again directly points to our email ID and the app, right? So whatever email ID the account we created, it will look for that app and deploy things in on that app, right? So again, this was going to be prod. What is the prod app name, and this is the build pack that we are using, right? So I can basically copy this and come back to my project, and since this is going to be for production environment, I'll paste it here basically, right? So uh, that's the only thing that you need to do, right? So I can do the same thing for dev, but there will be some changes, right? So dev I want to happen on this branch, develop branch, and right, I will be calling this as a development workflow. And yep, and the app name would be changed, right? So I want this to be deployed to my dev app, right? So Heroku dev app name. So if you're not sure what these are, let me take you back here. Settings, go into secrets, actions, right? So this is where I'm getting these names from, right? So I basically tell my GitHub actions, right? So look into this YAML file and find this app from the secret, and say that the Heroku deployment has to happen on that app, right? So these are the only two things that you need to add. These can be customized so much, right? So people have Slack integrations, people have um, Sonar links running, and there are so many things that we can do. This is the basic and the bare bones CI/CD that you can do, and I'll be pushing this into my master, right? So let's go and what are the unversioned files? Okay, that's not a problem. So I'll be adding a commit saying that added CI/CD pipelines pipeline config YMLs commit and push. Yeah, so push to master has happened, and if I go back here and look into my code, yep, uh, main had RAR, not a problem. Okay, okay, so I'll make a pull request here and merge my main into my master, right? So I have merged this, right? And if I come back into my code, you can see that in master we have our GitHub flows ready, right? And the thing is that once you have this GitHub flows ready, so each push that happens into our master will trigger a deployment pipeline, right? So if you see there is a this thing here, right? So if I open into actions, you can see that the merge pull request that we did from the main into master, it triggered our workflow, right? So what's happening here is that you can see our workflow is triggered, and since this has happened on our master branch, right? So the prod.yml has been triggered, right? So and that is because we have this, right, on master, right? So whatever all the pushes that happen into master trigger this prod.yml workflow. And if you're wondering what exactly this does, right, so it will set up everything and it will run npm install npm tests, and only once these are passing, we'll move on to our deployment stage, right? Now we are basically deploying our app into our production environment, right? So this will do npm install, npm build, and it will deploy into our Heroku, right? So if I go back to my Heroku app, if you look at it, right, so these are bare bones, and I haven't done any configuration yet, right? So even if I open my app, it should return me 404, right? This basically is a 404, right? So it couldn't find anything, so it is showing Heroku documentation, right? So uh, let's give it a couple of seconds for this to go, and once everything goes well, which they are, the installation happened and the build is happening. Once the build is happens, right, so it will deploy it, trigger deployment to Heroku as well, right? So correct. And while we are doing here, let me also merge the master back to develop, so that development also can be development pools also can happen, right? So I'm basically merging my master into develop. uh, right. So this thing you can see, right, so this will also do the same thing, right? It will whenever I'm pushing something into another branch, it will do the checks, right? So here I'm trying to merge master into develop, but the checks on master aren't completely yet, right? So it has to make go through the testing, and it has to go through the deployment. Only once it is done, we are able to merge it into our develop match, right? So this is basically making each deployment foolproof, right? Only once the previous builds are successful, you can use that into a newer build, right? So that's the main power of using CI/CD, right? So let me go back here. Let's see if we are having any problems in. Oh yeah, the deployment to Heroku is done and the job is completed, right? So if I go back into the pull request that we recently made, this should be the checks should be done, right? So all the checks are done. Now I can merge it here, and the same changes are will be deflected in the development as well, right? And if I go into my develop branch, and I can see that the latest commit is DC31 and it has triggered the development workflow, right? uh, right, so it is basically taking the development workflow. So previously you saw that the merges or the commits that I did on the development, sorry, the master branch, they triggered prod.yaml file and the production workflow, and the merges or commits on development branch, they are triggering commits, they're triggering deployments on the development workflow, right? So the tests are done and it is trying to deploy to prod. We should have changed the name. It is not exactly deploying to prod, it is deploying to dev only, but we did a mistake, right? So in the dev YAML, we haven't changed the name, right? So it's not a big issue, it's only a name, but the app as we have the app name as a dev app rightly, so it will figure it out, right? So and if I come back into my prod environment, I can see that the build has been succeeded and the deployment has happened. Right now if I open the app and a refresh, I should be able to see my React app, right? So that's how easy it is to make any changes, right? So I basically what I did was whatever local app that we had, I just linked it with Heroku and the deployment is done, right? So now from now on, every time that I push something into my master branch, it directly goes into prod, right? But that's not how we do. I take a feature branch from develop, and by the way, we'll try to sync master with develop, and take a branch out of development, and build your feature and push it back into dev, test it, QA it, pull it and merge it with master, then again do the trigger deployment. So that's how things go, right? So it might seem confusing, but once you enter startup and the corporate culture, these things are required so that there's a clear separation between environments, and somebody can't to simply break the deployment, right? So and there could be huge loss to the whatever product that we're building, right? So that's how you do this thing. Let's also look at our dev. The build is again still going on and it is trying to deploy to Heroku. Yep. Uh, the development workflow is done. Now I should be able to see the app in the dev environment as well, and rightly so, right? So this is our project matrix dev environment, and this is our prod environment, right? So currently, since this is our initial phases of our app, these both are synced up, and now I'll show you how I'll be creating a new features into our app, right? So basically, let's say I want to create a new feature from here, right? So what I'll do is I'll basically check out into my development branch, and I create a new branch from here, and this I'll call it as a feature slash let's say new name, right? Something like that, right? So I basically took a copy from develop and made a feature branch from it, right? Now I'll try to make some changes. I'm just trying to mock the real world development. Let's make a simple change. So Currently, this is how our app looks. Let me also run the local host. This is what it is running. So now if I make any changes, right, so I can actually see it on my local host directly, right? So I don't want to keep this hyperlink, so I'll basically remove the hyperlink, and it should reload, right? And I also don't want this text. Yeah, I'll call it as this is CI CD in action. Okay, perfect. So this is the feature that I developed, and the feature looks good to me. I'll also make sure that tests are running, and I'll try to run this test here. And obviously, it should fail because it is trying to get the text learn and to see if that is present in the document or not. But as we have changed it to this, I should rightly do the same change as well. See, the test is failing. Now I'll rewrite the test here. So instead of looking for learn React, I'll say look for this is CI/CD in action. Right now, if I rerun the test, ideally the test should pass. Right, so the test is passing, and I think the build will also succeed. So this is what I did, right? So I built a feature, and I also wrote tests for that. This is what happens in the real life as well. Now, what I would do is I'll try to push it and maybe make a pull request into develop, right? So I'll go into commit. There are two files changed, that app and test. I'll call it as added a new CI CD feature, and I'll push it. I'll push, right. So my feature is now pushed, and ideally this is what happens, right? So you go into a project, and no, there is a recent push to your feature, and you will make a pull request, and you'll ask no to try to develop, merge it with your develop, and maybe you'll ask to somebody from your team to review the code, right? So this is where code reviews come in, and if somebody wants to make some changes or wants to optimize the code that you've written, this is where it happens, right? So you will be only able to merge your code once you have some minimum number of reviewers acceptance, right? So currently I'm the only developer here. I can YOLO whatever I want. So I have raised a pull merge request, and I'm asking this feature to be merged into develop, right? So I'll merge this. Now, as soon as there is a merge or commit into develop, the deployment trigger has to happen, right? So if you see that has rightly happened, right? So this is my development branch, and if I go into recent commits, this is my recent commit, which I took from feature, right? And if I go into actions, right? So this is the latest build, right? And it is trying to test the feature, then it will deploy it into our prod, right? So I hope it happens pretty some little quicker. So this is the feature that we gave. So we are ideally looking for this to be replicated into dev as well. So this is my dev environment. If I currently reload, it is still showing my previous commit. But if I but once the deployment is finished, then it should reflect exactly what our feature has done. Right. So our deployment to dev environment is done. Now, if I reload, the changes has to be reflected here. Come on. Right. So our dev environment is now updated. So we can see our feature in dev as well. Now, as a last, to complete the circle, I'll do this, right? So there's a new push in develop. So I'll make a pull request into master, and merge it into our master, right? So as you can see, right, so when I try to merge it into master, so it has all the two checks that are previously passed. I can merge it. I'll confirm as much, right? So our feature now got merged into our uh, master, right? So now this would trigger a uh, production workflow, right? Right. So now it is trying to develop this into production, right? So that is how the life cycle happens, right? So if I have to tie back everything into what we previously did. So I had a feature branch which I created. So I added some features, made a pull request into develop, and it triggered a development pipeline, and it got deployed into dev, right? So that's what we have seen here, right? So my dev has the new feature, right? Now once I'm sure that the feature is good, the QA is done, everybody given a sign off that go ahead and deploy it to production. I'll make a pull from develop and try to merge it with my master. Again, everything has to go with code reviews and all. Since I'm the only person here, there won't be any code reviews here. Once now I merged it with master. Master again tries to look into GitHub Actions, and the production pipeline will be triggered, right? So you can see, right? So the production pipeline has been triggered, and it will try to deploy into our Heroku production environment, right? So in our case, this is our production environment. The feature hasn't been deployed yet because it is still in testing phase. And if I go back to pipeline, let's see what it is doing. So it has ran the tests again. If you might ask, right, no, why is it running test multiple times, right? So that's how it has to be done, right? So we can't no, these are production environments that we're talking about, right? So it's the flow that it goes. So it is trying to deploy it into production, and the build, everything is succeeded. It is waiting for Heroku to accept the changes. And no, this might look like a simple buffering kind of a thing, or loading page for you, but what happens in the backend was no, it will generate a Ubuntu server for us, and it will take all the build the finished build that we have, and that will know internally. I believe there will be an Nginx server, there's a port, a forwarding, maybe some kind of a Docker, everything, right? But uh, Heroku has abstracted away all these headache for us, and it basically takes Node.js app, and it does all the backend stuff for us, right? So that's the beauty of cloud applications these days, right? So ideally, if you are doing it on your own, you would have installed maybe you would have created a Docker image by yourself, or created an Nginx server, and try to match the ports, and maybe set up all the firewalls and all, right? So Heroku does that for us with the simple plugin, and we are getting this. If you see here, right? So there is this repository called Heroku deploy that we are using, right? So shout out to whoever that is, and this is given on official Heroku website as well, right? Waiting, yeah, deployment is done to production as well. And now if I reload my production, yeah, this is the new feature, right? So let's have you set up CI/CD, and trust me, this is a very simple project, but think about huge projects that we might be having, right? So everything has to be no, we can't wait for let's say 6 months to deploy everything, right? So that's how now everybody can take a copy of develop branch, and build their feature, merge it into dev, and test it on QA, that is dev environment, and then merge it into master, that will trigger a production deployment. Again, I tried to show you the bare bones of how this can be done. There are multiple nuances and things that happen. People set metrics, people send alerts to Slack group or Google chat. There's just so much thing that can happen. I'll link article maybe on GitHub Actions official documentation, so you can read about it. And I hope this video was helpful. And thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.